Hey, I'm Linda, a 28-year-old marketing executive with a flair for creativity and a talent for transforming coffee into successful campaigns. I live what most people would call a fairy tale life in downtown Chicago with my husband Mark, a brilliant software engineer who's as charming as he is smart. We met in the most classic rom-com way, bumping into each other at a coffee shop. One spilled latte, a whirlwind romance, and a dream wedding later. Here we are, 2 years into marriage and talking about starting a family. Mark, have you thought about nursery colors? I asked one evening, scrolling through Pinterest. Huh? Oh, yeah. How about blue? He replied, barely looking up from his laptop. I chuckled. Blue? That's so predictable. How about a nice sunny yellow? Whatever you think is best, honey, he said with a distracted smile. Little did I know, beneath our picture-perfect life, trouble was brewing. Mark's parents, Richard and Linda, had never fully warmed up to me. I get it, I'm not from their world of country clubs and trust funds, but a little acceptance would be nice. Take last week's family dinner, for example. Richard raised his glass, his gaze sharp like a hawk's. To family, he said, his voice laced with hidden meaning. May it grow, appropriately. I nearly choked on my wine. Did he really just say that? Not to be outdone, Linda added with her signature passive-aggressive sweetness. Yes, dear. Motherhood isn't for everyone, you know. We hope you're ready for the challenge. I forced a smile, squeezing Mark's hand under the table. He squeezed back but didn't say a word. Thanks for the backup, hubby. Months passed, and despite our efforts, no baby. That's when Richard suggested Dr. Anderson, a renowned fertility specialist. Only the best for family, he said, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. I nodded, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. Thank goodness for Emma, my colleague and best friend. Linda, you okay? She asked one day, noticing my distracted mood. Yeah, just family stuff, I sighed. Mark's parents again? She asked, rolling her eyes. Girl, you need to stand up to them. I know, it's just complicated, I muttered, not wanting to get into it. But as I left work that day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Little did I know, my seemingly perfect life was about to unravel in ways I couldn't have imagined. 6 months into our baby-making journey, I was starting to feel like a broken record. Another day, another negative pregnancy test. It felt like a punch to the gut every time. And don't even get me started on Dr. Anderson. The guy was acting stranger by the day. Dr. Anderson, what do these results mean? I asked during our last appointment, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. He shuffled his papers, avoiding eye contact. Well, Mrs. Johnson, it's inconclusive at this point. Inconclusive? What does that even mean? Things at home weren't much better. One night, I overheard Mark and his dad having a heated argument. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but Richard's voice carried like a foghorn. She's not good enough for this family, he boomed, if she can't even give you a child. I couldn't make out the rest, but my heart sank faster than an elevator with cut cables. Mark's response was too quiet to hear. Probably some half-hearted defense. Thanks for nothing, hubby. At work, Emma could sense something was wrong. Linda, you look like you've been through hell. What's going on? I spilled everything, the failed test, Dr. Anderson's evasiveness, the argument I overheard. Maybe you should get a second opinion, she suggested. Something feels off about Dr. Anderson. I was mulling over Emma's advice when things took an even weirder turn. I started noticing a car following me around. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. But after a few days, I was sure someone was tailing me. One afternoon, I'd had enough. I whipped my car around and confronted the driver. Who are you and why are you following me? The guy looked panicked. I'm just... Spill it, I demanded. He cracked almost immediately. Turns out Richard had hired him to keep tabs on me. Can you believe that? Meanwhile, Mark was practically a ghost in our marriage. Late nights at work had become his new routine, and whenever I tried to talk to him, he either snapped or completely ignored me. Mark, can we talk? I asked one night, hoping for some connection. Not now, Linda. I'm tired, he mumbled, not even bothering to look up from his phone. The final blow came at a charity event, orchestrated by none other than my dear mother-in-law. Oh, Linda, she exclaimed, feigning surprise. Have you met Vanessa? She and Mark were so close in college. Such a shame things didn't work out. Vanessa smiled sweetly, but there was a predatory glint in her eyes. As I watched her and Mark chatting, laughing at old inside jokes, I felt the last fragile threads of my life unraveling. Standing there, watching my husband with his ex, I realized something had to change. This wasn't the life I had signed up for. It was time to start asking some hard questions and demanding real answers. One thing was crystal clear: I deserved better than this circus masquerading as a family. Enough was enough. I decided to take control and booked an appointment with Dr. Martinez, another fertility specialist. After a battery of tests, she delivered the news. "Mrs. Johnson, I can say with certainty that you're perfectly capable of conceiving. There's no medical reason preventing you from getting pregnant." Felt like I'd been blindsided. But Dr. Anderson said, "I'm sorry, but Dr. Anderson's diagnosis seems questionable at best," she replied. Armed with this bombshell, I marched into Dr. Anderson's office. "Care to explain why Dr. Martinez says I'm perfectly fertile?" His face went pale. "Mrs. Johnson, I can explain." "Start talking," I demanded. And he did. He spilled everything. Richard had tried to bribe him into falsely diagnosing me as infertile. "I didn't take the money," Dr. Anderson stammered, "but I did stall your treatment." I was livid. "You played with my emotions, my marriage, my future. How dare you?" Leaving his office, I knew I had to dig deeper. That night, I set up a hidden camera in our living room. Call it intuition, but something about Mark's late nights felt off. 2 days later, I watched the footage, and my world crumbled. There was Mark, wrapped around Vanessa, on our couch. Our couch. I felt sick. Immediately, I called Emma, my hands shaking. "I need your help." "What's wrong?" she asked. "I need to hack into Mark's emails. Can you help?" Emma, ever the loyal friend, came through like a pro. What we uncovered made my blood run cold. Emails between Mark, Richard, and Linda, all plotting to push me out of the family. "Look at this," Emma pointed at the screen. "There's something here about Richard's company too." We dug deeper and hit the jackpot. Evidence of a major financial scandal. Karma's a real piece of work, isn't it, Richard? Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Linda invited me for tea. Sitting across from me, she slid a document across the table. "It's just a formality, dear," she said, her smile as fake as her pearls. "A post-nuptial agreement to protect everyone's interests." I wanted to laugh in her face, but instead, I smiled sweetly. "I'll have my lawyer look it over." Speaking of lawyers, I realized I needed one. Swallowing my pride, I made a call I never thought I would. "Jack, it's Rita. I need your help." We hadn't spoken in years, but desperate times call for desperate measures. As I explained everything to my estranged brother, a plan began forming in my mind. It was time for some good old-fashioned revenge. Over the next few weeks, I became a regular Sherlock Holmes. I gathered every scrap of evidence: the fertility test results, a recording of Dr. Anderson's confession, thank you, voice recorder app, the video of Mark's betrayal, those damning emails, and proof of Richard's financial misdeeds. Each piece of evidence felt like a nail in their coffin. "You sure about this, Linda?" Emma asked. One night, as we went over everything, I nodded with a grim smile. They messed with the wrong woman. It was time they learned that actions have consequences. Looking at the mountain of evidence before me, I felt a strange mix of sadness and determination. This wasn't how I'd imagined my fairy tale marriage would end, but sometimes you have to burn it all down to build something better. Justice was approaching, and I was ready. They thought they could break me, push me out, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. Linda Johnson doesn't go down without a fight, and boy, was I ready to fight. The moment of truth arrived on a sunny Saturday morning. I'd asked Mark to stay home, claiming we needed to talk about our future. As he walked into the living room, I sat there, cool as a cucumber, a folder in my lap. "We do need to talk about our future, Mark," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, or rather, the lack of it. "What do you mean?" he asked, confusion written across his face. I laid it all out. His infidelity, the conspiracy with his parents, everything. With each revelation, the color drained from his face. How did you?" he stammered. I ignored his question and handed him an envelope. "Divorce papers. Sign them without contest, or your family's dirty laundry goes public." He signed without a word. Good boy. Next up was Dr. Anderson. I anonymously sent a detailed report, along with his recorded confession, to the medical board. "Bye-bye, medical license. For Richard, I had something special in store. I gave him a call. Hello, Linda. To what do I owe this pleasure? His voice dripped with sarcasm. Cut the crap, Richard. I know about your financial scandal. Transfer a hefty divorce settlement to me, or I'll make sure the world knows too. There was a long pause. You wouldn't dare. Try me. He complied grudgingly. I almost felt bad. Almost. The coup de grace, I leaked the information about Richard's scandal to Emma's journalist friend. The story hit like a tsunami. Richard's company stocks nosedived, and the feds came knocking. Linda's social circle evaporated faster than spilled champagne. No more fancy galas for you, Linda. Even Vanessa got her comeuppance. An anonymous tip to her employer about her role in the scheme, and, poof, there went her job and reputation. As the dust settled, I found myself at a new beginning. With Richard's settlement, I started my own marketing firm with Emma. To new beginnings? Emma said, raising her glass in our brand new office. And karma, I added with a grin. 2 years flew by. I stood in my office admiring the Chicago skyline when my phone buzzed. Richard's company had filed for bankruptcy, and he was drowning in lawsuits. Mark. Last I'd heard, he was stuck in a dead-end job, his career in ruins. I placed a hand on my growing belly and smiled. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I'd hit it out of the park. This baby inside me was a promise of a better future. My new partner, a kind man I'd met through work, was everything Mark wasn't. As I felt a little kick, I made a silent vow. This child would know only love, respect, and loyalty, the true meaning of family. The sun was setting as I'd packed up, ready to head home. The sky was a canvas of orange and pink as if it were celebrating with me. I faced betrayal and come out on top on my own terms. Walking out, I couldn't help but smirk. The price of betrayal had been high for them. For me, I was just getting started. Life's funny that way. Sometimes you've got to lose it all to win everything. And boy, had I won. If you were in my shoes, would you have taken revenge on your in-laws and ex-husband, or would you have walked away without looking back? What do you think is more empowering, getting even, or moving on?